Warning, MF Uncensored contains adult language and discussion. Listener discretion is advised.
We're a couple of misfits. We're a couple of misfits. What's the matter with misfits? That's where we fit in. We're not Duffy and Dilly. Don't go around willy-nilly. Seems to us kind of silly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to MF Uncensored. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and basically anywhere you guys get your podcast. You can also find us on our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you'll find links to not only this show, but our other shows like the Multiverse Fancast and Cinematic Adventures. You'll also find links to Rob's reviews, my articles, and our brand new Misfit Faction store. If you guys are looking to add to your Misfit closet, we also have a brand new sweatshirt that's on sale for you guys, so make sure you guys check that out. Again, that's themisfitfaction.com. I'm Paul, one of your hosts, and we're excited for today's episode. This one's an interesting one. We have Mr. John Anthony, who is a hypnotist and YouTube channel star. So we had a lot of fun talking with him and just found him exceptionally interesting. He talks about his early days, getting on stage and changing his career basically to becoming a full-time hypnotist. And I found him super interesting. Like, I've never really experienced that sort of thing. I've always had a little bit more of a closed mind with stuff like that, but to talk to someone who does it professionally, it was really cool, and you should definitely check out his channel. It's fantastic. So you'll hear more about it in the show, so make sure you guys listen through. And don't forget, guys, if you are also looking to start your very own podcast, maybe you guys have been listening to us for the past couple of months. By the way, we also just hit 6,500 downloads. Guys, you are fantastic. Thank you so much for the love and support. Maybe you're finally getting the podcast bug, though, and you want to start your own show. If you guys go to podbean.com/misfitfaction, you'll get a month of podcasting on us. It's a thank you to all of our listeners and also a chance for you to try out podcasting and see if it's for you. And if that's something you're interested in, reach out to us. We are always looking for new content, new shows, new hosts, new everything. So make sure you guys go to podbean.com/misfitfaction. Or maybe you have your own online business. Guys, podcasts are everywhere. There are millions of them. If you guys are looking to get your product or your service out there and you're looking to do some advertising and some sponsorship to support your favorite show, MF Uncensored, you can go to sponsorship.podbean.com/misfitfaction to get $100 worth of free advertising. Again, it's a thank you from us to our listeners. We always love supporting you guys. We always love supporting other people. So make sure you guys go to sponsorship.podbean.com/misfitfaction. And today's show is, of course, brought by Raise Energy. We've been talking about Raise Energy since the show started by Rep Sports. We are big fans. Maybe you guys are looking for something that'll get you through that afternoon slump or that early morning workout. I work out every morning, 5 a.m., so I need plenty of things to keep me going sometimes, so I always turn to Raise Energy by Rep Sports. They also have other products like testosterone boosters for the men, protein, all sorts of apparel and t-shirts and everything like that, so make sure you guys check them out. That's repsports.com, and at checkout, if you use the code MISFIT89, you'll get 10% off your order. So that takes care of all of the beginning stuff. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are talking to John Anthony. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to MF Uncensored. Don't forget, guys, if you're listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, our website, themisfitfaction.com. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me in the studio today is Rob. Rob, how are you today?
Hi, Paul. I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, you just kind of showed up at my house.
Well, you know, no one was there to stop me, and the doors weren't locked.
I know. I forgot to lock the doors again, and just suddenly you're here down in the podcast studio. It's the weirdest thing. But we are excited to have somebody else in the studio with us, or in the Zoom studio. I got to think of a better phrase for it. The Zoom studio. And that's Mr. John Anthony. John, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We love having people on the show, especially people with any sort of film backgrounds, which we'll talk about in a minute, because we're big film nerds. That's what we do.
There you go.
So, John, for those of our listeners that don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an independent filmmaker, actor, writer, and director. Started very late in my acting career. Started at the age of 50. I'm 58 now, and just kind of, I was with a improv comedy troupe for a while before I even got into acting, and then I got married, and my wife, she works from home, and how I basically got into it. I also teach school, so I'm a school teacher as well. So like my days are filled up, and I have my summers off. And during the summertime, I got up one morning like 10 o'clock. Said, "Hey, honey, let's go check out a movie. We can get an early price, and and get in matinee price, whatever." And she looked at me. She's like, "I'm working. I have a job. You need to find something else to do." And she's like, "You've always talked about taking acting classes. Why don't you start taking some acting classes?" So I did that about 8 years ago, and started with a couple of different teachers, and hooked on to a great acting coach by the name of Glenn Morshower. I don't know if you guys may know him. He's been in Ozarks. He's in The Resident. He's been every general in every Transformer movie. He was in 24.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I know exactly who he is.
Yeah.
Oh, he's excellent. He's a good, reliable
awesome
character actor. I like him a lot.
He's phenomenal. He was actually even on Jimmy Kimmel as a guy but you don't know, or something like that. They had him on there.
Yeah, I'm looking on his IMDb. He's got like 233 credits to his name.
Yeah, he really kicked me off as far as getting the writing bug, and and I had learned some stuff from other actors. I took a great workshop from a casting director in New Orleans by the name of Jackie Birch. Learned a lot from her. And then I had a friend, I was actually taking a class, and she went and audited Glenn's class and came back and said, "Hey, John, you need to come check this class out." And I went and checked it out and drove home, and my wife's like, "So what'd you think?" I said, "I'm going to Glenn's class." I mean, I learned so much from him, and not just as from an acting perspective, but just generally in life. He teaches everything, and it was just. And then I got the writing bug in his class, and then next thing I know, I'm making short films and acting and all that stuff, and it's been a great ride so far.
That's incredible. So for writing, do you think your background as a teacher kind of helped you with that, or do you think it? Okay.
Before we even I like that. I like your train of thought, but before we even get to that, I got to find out. I am also a teacher, so I have to ask, what do you teach?
Yeah. I'm a PE teacher. So the writing question you had?
Oh, there we go. Perfect. We should have started with Rob's. Should have started with Rob's.
So, and my next question is, in a public school or private?
I'm in a private school. I've been there 26 and a half years.
Okay, and that was my next question was how many years till retirement? Because I know that's...
Yeah, you know what? And the crazy thing is it's just, how long have you been teaching?
Let's see. This is now 27 years, I think.
He doesn't teach math.
Okay.
No, I'm a public school English teacher.
Okay, great. That's awesome. You know what? It's one of those jobs where it's just like I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's just like it's one you never want to like walk away from.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You have your bad days and stuff, but I had a good friend of mine, and he's like, man, you got any bad kids at your school? I go, no. I said, there's no bad kids. They have bad days, just like all of us.
Yeah, I have to say, I still wake up every day excited to go into my job. So I'm still loving it, even after all these years. So yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, now we can ask your question now that we know he's a PE teacher.
So now knowing what, see, now it totally threw me off, but because I thoroughly enjoy writing, obviously not speaking. No, I enjoy writing myself. We do articles on our website. Rob's an English teacher. Did you find it challenging though to start writing, especially screenplays?
You know what? Not really, because it was kind of one of those things. Like I remember, like in Glenn's class, he had told us one day in class, because generally when you go to an acting class, like they give you scripts or monologues, and and then everyone would perform their stuff. And the way he relates it to class, it's just like, hey, if you ever want to write something, feel free to write a script, and if you want to perform it, perform it. And the very first script, I was outside. It just kind of came to me, and I was outside with this actress who I was performing it with, and she's out there, and she's like, "This is really good, but where did you get this?" And I'm just like, "Why?" And she's like, "There's so many typos." And then here comes my coach's ass going, "I don't teach English," or all this stuff. Even my wife's like, "You're a horrible speller." And so we go in, and I basically, because when she said that, I kind of got like nervous. I said, "Oh, I found it on the website. It was just something that I found." And so we go in and we perform the scene. And a lot of times what you do is you'll do the scene, and then like Glenn would watch it and critique it, and then he'd have you do it again. But we did the scene, and he said he loved it. And at the end, he's just like, "Where did this come from?" And she's just like, "Oh, John said he found it off the website." And Glenn's like, "Well, where?" And I said, "Well, no, actually, I wrote it." She's like, "Why didn't you tell me that?" I go, "Well, when you started saying there's a typo and this word's misused," I said, "I got nervous, and I didn't want to claim it." And then after that, it's just like I found myself just getting ideas and coming up with scripts, and and so forth. And I'd write a scene for class. I probably would write probably 97% of the scenes that I would do in class. It got to the point where Glenn would be like, so John, what do we write today? Because if it wasn't something, and I would always ask my partners, hey, do you want to do something that I wrote, or do you want to do, something that you picked? And they're like, hey, if you wrote something, let's go ahead and go with it. And then I'd look at these things and go, hey, can I turn this into a short film? And then all of a sudden, yeah, because one of the first scenes I wrote, I had a friend of mine, he called me up. He's like, hey, we can make this a short film. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you got a beginning, you got a middle, you got an end. He goes, I'll direct it. Let's put it together and just see how it does. So, and the first film I ever did was called A Gift, and we ended up shooting it and ended up putting in some festivals, and it did fairly well. And then that just kind of kickstarted me. And I'm like, man, this is kind of like my thing. I like the writing aspect. I love the acting aspect, but anytime I can write and then see my characters come to life with a great cast, it's just like, okay, this is just like the best thing for me.
So do you choose then to act in your pieces because you have a vision for it, or because how much care do you have over your screenplay that you want to make sure it turns out exactly the way you want it to?
That's a great question, because like people ask, well, how big's your production company? I said, it's two. It's me and a good friend of mine. He, I write and direct, and he does everything else. And then I have a couple of people who do my music. But it's not so much that, of course I want it to come out the way I want it to be, because there's a couple of times like I was doing a film and this guy's like, hey, I'm going to throw this line in. I go, no you're not. I said, just read the script. And, because he thought it would be funny. And I'm just like, it's not. Just do me a favor, just read the script and so forth. And, and it was fine. But, a lot of times the reason why I do that is because being my age, between now 58, there's not a lot of roles where they're looking, hey, we need a 58-year-old guy, unless it's a grandpa or a dad or something. Yeah. So when I started, even when I started was 50, I got a couple of roles as a Secret Service in a documentary movie for Ronald Reagan. And there was another, one I played, like it was kind of like not made for TV thing, but I played Johnny Depp's one of his, I don't know if it was his lawyer or his money guy or something like that. Not with the real Johnny Depp though, but it was a show. But what I told myself is I went and met with my agent because things were slow, and I just said, look, if I'm not getting anything, I'm not going to rest on your laurels to find me something. I'm going to create something, and that's what I started doing. Because if you look at my last 8 or 9 short films, they're all stuff that I did. And, I put myself in because one, whether I know the certain character that I want to play, or I'm writing something for myself. And then, two, the other thing is that when I would cast, I never, ever held it like an audition. Because there were so many great actors in my class. I just go up to someone, hey, you know what? I got a part for you. You want to be in it? Sure. And, next thing we know, we're shooting a film. But, and I always, someone asked me, because I'm still very, very green at only being in it 8 years and stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's just like, it's for actors and anybody, if you're not getting anything, because what is it? Liam Neeson said, I think he was on Fallon. He goes, 95% of all actors are unemployed. If they're not working, they're not doing anything. Yeah. And so I sat there and I said, you know what, I'm just going to create stuff. And I encourage all actors, if you're not getting anything, or if you're not, booking anything right now, sit down and write something, videotape it, create it, make a new reel for yourself, if things are slow, because, Glenn taught us one of the great lessons, with acting. He said, what you guys need to understand is this is a marathon and it's not a sprint, right? Because I have a lot of friends that, okay, I took an action, I'm going to LA. And then 6 months later, they're back home because it's like, well, I spent all my money and, I didn't get the show that I wanted, or I didn't get this or get that. So just like create stuff, because then all of a sudden you're working on your writing, you're working on your creativity, and you're also working on your acting. And then all of a sudden you're putting this stuff together, and you can, help people with reels. And like all my actor friends, when we shoot stuff, it's just, no one's getting paid. It's just like, all right, I'm going to give you all the footage you want, and we're going to put this in a reel for you. And then we go from there. So,
right. It's great that you said that, because one of the questions I always have for anybody who's in Hollywood is, how to get started, what that process was. There's a young lady that listens to our show, and she's always talking to me. Anytime we have actors or screenwriters on, she's always like, this is what I want to do. I want to go to Hollywood, and I want to, be famous, and I want to go to UCLA and do films. So to hear some advice for people getting started, I know she's going to really appreciate it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your very first time getting in front of the camera and creating something, your first auditions? I love hearing about stuff.
Oh, my first audition was horrible.
It always is. No one ever says, I really nailed it the first time.
I know, right? So it was, I was with this acting coach and at the time, and when I first came in, she kind of asked me, what I was going to do. And and she goes, well, to be honest, you're only going to get like 2 roles. And that's going to be a policeman or like a gang member, a motorcycle guy or whatever. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. And then I went into her, I looked at her, I said, well, what about like a PE teacher or something? She's like, no, you can play that. I go,
yeah, no.
I know, right? And she goes, no. She goes, you can play that. I go, really? I said, because that's what I do for a living. And, I've been doing it for a long time. And she's like, no, you can do that. So all of a sudden, like I was with her for a while and then she sent me on this audition and I go and, they get, I pull up and they basically gave me like the script when I walked in the door. Mm-hmm. So it's like a cold read, you've
right.
got it in the script and I'm reading it and I'm just like, even to myself, I'm like, what am I doing? This is not, this is not what not what I signed up for, just not what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, they go, hey, read this one instead. And I'm like, then I walked out, I got in the car, I drove home. My wife goes, how was it? I just like, it was awful. It was awful. But then, then there's been other ones where, I've gone in and I had to go out to Oklahoma for an audition and went and read in front of this really, really super nice guy. He's a great casting director out in Oklahoma and Texas area and did my scene. And when I got done, he kind of stopped and he's just like, why haven't I seen you before? And I'm like, I don't know. That's a great question. And then he goes, I really liked your read. Would you mind reading for someone else as well? And I said, sure. So he goes, how long do you need? And I said, I don't know, maybe like 5 minutes. So he gave me the script, came back in, read for another part. And he's just like, man, that was really, really good. And then I read for him again a couple months later. And I came in and I kind of like a different way. I approached the whole thing as a different way, because from the basics of looking at the character, I'm like, okay, I don't mean anything what this character looks like. So I've got to go in and kind of convince them, all right, I can still do this role, but I've got to change something. So I changed kind of like how the dialogue was done. And then when I got done, he and the girl who was with them, she was doing the filming, he kind of looked and I'm like, okay. And he looks at me and goes, okay. And she's like, do you want him to do it differently? And she's like, no. He goes, that was really good. No one's read it like that. I didn't get the part, but it's kind of one of those things where like, even if, and this is, what I try to tell people too, it's like, do you get mad or anything? It's like, in this business, you're going to hear the word no 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can go in and kill an audition. Just kill it and walk out and go, man, I got it. I'll just wait for my agent to call me. I'm going to be booked. I'm going to be next to Harrison Ford playing this guy. And then all of a sudden you never hear anything. And it's just like, and that's kind of, you have to understand that. And it's just like, it's not so much that you didn't do something that they wanted, but it comes down to so much of how they look, quick story. I saw this thing and I kind of did a self-submit for it and I was reading it and it was for an independent film and they were looking for a distinguished detective from New York.
Okay.
And, and so I'm like going, okay, what, I'm going to go ahead and I keep reading. And I'm like reading, he distinguished detective, been on the force for several years, has seen everything, done all this stuff. And then I look down at the age requirements and they're like going male 25 to 28. I'm like, what distinguished detective has seen everything between 25 and 28? I'm thinking, all right, maybe 45, 50, even a 60-year-old, detective, whatever. But again, it comes down to, a look. And, I've got a really good friend of mine. I think he's a phenomenal actor. And, we have these conversations all the time. And it's just like, you can watch a movie on TV and like, oh my gosh, how did this guy's, horrible, or this is terrible. How do they get the role or whatever? But, if they have a certain look, a lot of times that, some castings, will go with look. And then there's other ones that, they're going to go with what they think's right. Where it's just like, hey, you know what? This guy came in and did something completely different and it's not what we thought of, but you know what? We like this. And it's not about a look. It's about what this guy brought to the table. And you know what? We're going to go with this guy. So, again, it's a tough business, but it's one of those things, where you've got to kind of think about, is this what I really want to do? And for me, it is. I love it. I love the aspect of, being on camera and creating characters and writing and so forth. And even to like the actress that you were talking about, that calls in all the time, about wanting to be famous and all that other stuff. I write because I want to tell stories.
Right.
I like my screenplay right now that I pitched to a couple production companies out in Los Angeles, and one actually asked to read it. I had a friend of mine, he's like, oh, what are you going to sell it for if they offer you? And it's like, I'm not even really worried about selling it. Of course, everybody wants to get paid, but to me, it's an art. And I've always looked at it that way, where it's just like, if you guys go to one of my films or you watch a film and they go, man, you know what? That was funny, or God, that was good, or, God, that was horrible, whatever it was. But just to have it, to be able to put stuff on paper, tell a story, and then, film it and create it. It's to me, it's an art.
And it's nice too, I'm sure, in your life that you have the luxury of being able to not have to rely on, an income from filmmaking, whereas you have your other profession, which is one is your career and one is your passion. Now, if you could, and the nice thing too about this, because what I'm hearing from you is that yes, you will hear no from acting, but when it comes to screenwriting, there is no, because you can keep producing regardless of what everyone is saying. You're on your own schedule with that, so it doesn't matter what anyone else says. I'm going to keep writing.
Correct.
Where does your passion lie more, do you think, in the writing or in the acting?
You know what? I right now it's probably 60-40, 60 into the writing, 40 into the acting right now, because because right now I've got two short films that are in the works that we're working on. Now, and then all of a sudden when we're shooting and I'm behind the camera, it goes, all right, now it's 90 acting, 10 writing, because I already read it and wrote it. But most of the time it's 50-50. I love a great story. I mean, I had so much, like all the stuff that I've done, and not including just my stuff, I've had so much fun. I worked on some Ready Seal commercials and met just an incredible crew and company, and it was just, and just had so much fun with these people. And every experience I've had up to this date has been an absolute blast. I've never walked off and go, oh, this is awful. These guys are totally unorganized or whatever. So it's just, it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm blessed, and, I count my blessings every day. And, if I get a call back and so forth, and, I book it, then that's great. And if I don't, you know what, it's all right. I'll wait for the next one to come up. So
now I'm looking at a lot of your screenplays that you've written here and a lot of the films you're doing. And I notice a lot of them are either social issues or high concept, high conflict. And I'm wondering how much of that, and I have a little bit of a background with improv as well. When it comes to improv, you want to create like the highest level of conflict that you can to produce the most drama. So how did that experience in improv contribute to the creation of the?
I think a little bit. It's weird because the way my brain thinks, it's just like, a lot of my scenes, actually, when I first started writing class, like someone always died in the scene. And that was even like, Glenn would come in and goes, all right, John, who's dying today? And a lot of times if I wrote a scene, it would be my wife, and my wife would, like, before I'd leave for class, she goes, do I die tonight in the scene? I go, honey, you die.
You die.
And, so
who's getting Chekhov's gun with this one?
Exactly. So, I think that improv aspect gives me the ability to kind of almost like think outside the box a lot, where it's just like not so stereotypical, where it's like, hey, this person has to be this, and it's just like, no, this is how this is going to happen, or this is how I'm going to write this stuff. But again, I mean, I don't know what this to sound in a weird way, but a lot of times, most of the music I listen to is like, I listen to screenplays, or soundtracks, and because there's no dialogue and it's just music. And a lot of times when I'm driving home, or if I'm thinking something will just come to me like, wait a minute, how about a mob guy who loses his daughter, and he goes out and he seeks revenge for whatever this, and that's kind of what Family Matters based off of. And then all of a sudden, thank God for Siri, because I'll be like, Siri, take a note, because I'm driving. Mob guy loses his daughter and then goes after the guy who finds him or whatever. Or, like Glenn had mentioned something in class one day, and I actually took what he mentioned in class, and it was just a line, and I made an entire short film about it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and to this day, he still says it's one of his funniest short films that he's seen.
Now, which film is that?
That's Swimmers.
Swimmers, okay.
Yeah. That's Swimmers. So yeah, and that was a tough one too, because it's like that was the first comedy I ever wrote. So it's just like, one of the things is that, a friend of mine said, if you ever want to see how an audience perceives your movies, be in a place where you don't know anybody. And so I had lost one of my students to cancer, and their parents started a foundation, and being with all my friends from my acting class and everything, I came up with a film showcase, and I was going to just basically, I rented out a theater, and I got a bunch of friends of ours, and we all chipped in and put all our movies together. And then I just took donations for this foundation, and we ended up raising about close to like $3,000.
Oh, wow.
But it was free, so all you had to do was just kind of come in. If you wanted to make a donation, you could, and basically everybody did. So I ended up Swimmers was one of the films that was being shown, and it was one of those things where it's just like, okay, are people going to laugh? How are people going to react to it, and so forth? And in the beginning, people didn't really understand what was going on until there's a certain part where they go, oh, I get it now. Because when we did it in class, the first time we come out, they're like, they're Breaking Bad. These guys are making drugs or whatever. And I'm sitting there hearing them say this, and my buddy who's doing the scene with me, like, you guys have no idea what's going to happen right now. You just have no idea. So, and that was it. And before we showed it there, I showed it at our Christmas party, and I was nervous as all get up, because it's just like, are people going to laugh? And even my wife's like, are you nervous? I said, I'm petrified. Because the worst thing you want to do is write a comedy and you get 0 laughs.
Right.
Yeah. How true is the statement that dying is easy, but comedy is hard?
Oh, it's for me, honestly, it's the toughest thing for me to write. I mean, I struggle with it all the time. If you want me to write a scene where someone, dies or gets hurt, or there's a conflict, but I do something where there's funny. It's gonna take me a while.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that I love that you touch base on is how some days you're 90-10% on something, then others 60-40. For me, like, I love to podcast. Podcasting is one of my favorite things to do. Like, we did an episode before this, we have an episode after this. I love doing it. But then when it comes time to editing and sending out emails and trying to book interviews and all these things, I'm sitting there going, why am I even doing this? Like, why is it? But then I get on behind the microphone, and I'm like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why, like, I get to do the thing that I love to do the most. But it's nice to hear that, you have similar days where it's like, all right, well, on this day, I'm 90% the actor, 10% the writer, and it switches and it varies. So I really enjoy hearing that stuff. Is there any part of the process that, I don't want to say that you don't like, but something that was like surprisingly difficult when you first started?
Yeah, or maybe that you wish someone else was doing for you.
Yeah, well, a buddy of mine, he says the two toughest people to work with when you're filming are children and animals.
Yes.
Right.
And one of the things for me is, and I even have it on my bio on my webpage, is that in every movie, I either make reference, or there's a picture, or I put my dog in it. And there are some times where he's like, he's looking at me like going, Dad, I'm not doing this scene again. You know what? I want to just walk down the street, and I just want to keep walking. Like, come on, you got to do it again. You got to do it again. But it's just, I mean, that's probably like the toughest, just trying, from an animal perspective, getting him to do, because there's sometimes where he'll be like perfect. And then we're like, oh, you know what? We got to fix the lighting. And then the lighting, something's different. It's like, but generally, I mean, I really haven't had anything that I've done that, or, worked with, that gets frustrating. I think sometimes, like, sometimes people want to reshoot it, like if I like the scene and my production guy likes the scene, well, sometimes actually, I can do it better. Like, no, we're moving on. Oh no, I can do it better. I can do it better. I go, no, this is perfect. We got exactly what we want. So sometimes, you'll find like the actors want it, beating themselves up a little bit. And it's like, trust me. And then, then they'll watch it and it's like, man, I told you I could have do it better. I go, there was nothing wrong with that. You did great. So again, it's just the whole aspect of it, because again, being still green and learning every day, it's just, to me, I just look at it, it's just a journey, and it's just, and it's just learning the process. I mean, it can be difficult at times, the editing aspect of it, so forth, and, learning, different things all the time. But once you kind of learn that aspect and you're starting to learn stuff, it's just a ton of fun.
So speaking of inserting your dog everywhere, was that Hank I heard barking a few minutes back there?
That was Hank. And then we did rescue about a year ago. We rescued a little French bulldog from a puppy mill.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And yeah, so she's been with us for about a little over a year now, and just love her to death. Because like Hank, because my wife works at home, Hank was actually a Christmas present for me. But because, I go to school and stuff like that, he'd come up to the school and the kids would love him. We'd bring him to practice and, the kids would love him. But because he's home so much, he's more my wife's dog.
Yeah.
But when we got, but when we got Ivy, she follows me everywhere. So it's kind of like the family now has balance.
Oh, I love it. We have our own animal mascot here at the show who might make an appearance. We have a cat named Maze. We call him the pod cat.
He does.
There you go.
Well, not you and me, Rob.
No,
yes. No.
Yeah, my wife and I, we have 2 dogs at home, and both of them are rescues, and we love them to death. They are just the best.
Yeah.
Just doofers.
So your most recent short that you have up here is A Love Not Lost, and from what I'm seeing, is it got some merit at one of your? Is that at a film festival?
Yeah, it's got a couple actually. It won an award of merit in Las Vegas. Both myself and a friend of mine who was the lead actress in it, we both got a platinum award for best actor and actress out in Los Angeles.
Oh wow, that must have been very validating.
It was kind of one of those things where it's just like, and she's phenomenal, and her name is Ashley Audition, and she when I wrote it, I just went to her and said, look, I need you to play this part. Because we did the scene in class, and I said, you got to play this part. She did, and she just, I sent it off to this film festival. And most of the film festivals I try to hit are, Los Angeles, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, the kind of the bigger markets.
Yes, right.
You never know who's going to be in the audience, and just say, we like this writer, or we like this actor, and so forth. And they had sent me something back and said, hey, you know what, you guys are in the finals and so forth. And then they said, congratulations. And it was very humble, and it was a great honor, but not something that I was ever expecting. Because like for me, all I really do, like when I submit to film festivals, if I can just get my film in the festival, just so that people can see the work and so forth, that's really what what I'm looking for, and just people know my writing and know my work and so forth. But yeah, that was probably one of the toughest characters I ever had to play too.
Oh wow! And what are you working on currently? I know you mentioned some upcoming projects.
Yeah, so we're actually, the cast is almost 100% complete. It's called My Journey to Me. It's about a young mid-20s woman who finally decides to come out, and she has to deal with that with her friends and family. And I've got 2 just amazing actresses to play the leads in that. And then I've got a comedy coming out after that called Scars, which is a micro short, which would probably be, depending on the festival, some micro shorts are 10 minutes or less, or some are 6 or 5 or whatever. It'll probably be like about a 5-minute short.
Okay.
And then I'm also working on A Family Matter, which we shot as a short film, turning that into a full-length feature. I'm about 30 pages into that.
Oh wow!
And then the other thing is just Walter. I wrote Walter about 2.5 years ago, and then did a whole bunch of rewrites. I had this idea that just kind of came to me, and ended up writing the first time I wrote it. It was like about 125 pages, which is long for a script. And my buddy's like, you got to cut that down. And I went in and cut it down some. And then that's the one I actually sent out to a production company in Los Angeles that wanted to see it. I haven't heard anything back, but that's kind of like, that happens sometimes where they'll look at it, might be on the shelf or whatever, maybe they will. But that's kind of like my baby right now. That's like what I really want to see take off. It's something that I'm really, really passionate about. It's a family movie, which, nowadays there's not a lot of family movies out there where you can take your 5-year-old, your 8-year-old, your 16, your grandma and grandpa, and it's going to be something where, they can all sit down and watch and feel good. It's a feel good story. It's basically about a young boy who is in search of the ultimate bicycle, because he was kind of given like a garage sale bike, and he's just not real happy with it, and goes through all these troubles with it. And then he ends up leaving it someplace, and then he ends up meeting an elderly gentleman, and they befriend each other and become friends. And the thing that is, even on the poster, it's like one was looking for help, one was looking for a friend. And when I wrote it, I'll never forget, my wife came in and she's like, what are you doing? I said, that story I told you about? I said, yeah. I said, I said, I'm going to start writing it, and so forth. And I had already had like 2 characters that I wanted to play. And I'm still in my bucket list, or whatever I can do, or, to get these guys to be part of this film is I would love to have Morgan Freeman play Walter. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ed Burns.
Oh, absolutely.
I love Ed Burns. I want him to play the father.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and I have to have Helen Mirren play my next door neighbor.
Oh, it's a great cast.
I know, because I love all of them, and Helen Mirren, I think she's outstanding. I think she's beautiful. I mean, she's just amazing. But when I was writing this, the whole time I was writing Walter, I just kept thinking to myself, I know there's other actors and people that could play this, but the only one that I would ever I don't say settle on, but for the perfect would be Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
And to see his character play this, I always joke to my wife, I said, and I would love to be, because the Academy Awards are tomorrow, I think.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
That's our next episode.
That's what we're recording next.
There you go. So who knows, maybe in a year or two, the Academy Award for Best Actor goes to Morgan Freeman and Walter. And I'm just like, all right, there you go. We did it. So
if that is the case, we're going to have you back on the show.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You pronounced it here.
I've been having a blast.
So you guys heard it first on MF Uncensored. All right.
There you go.
But man, John, this was a blast. We're running a little low on time. We're so grateful to get a chance to talk to you. For anybody who wants to see some of your work or learn a little bit more about you, where can they go?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, which is jdafilm, just film.com. It actually has one of my short films on there. If you go to reels and stuff, it's got a whole listing of all the projects that are up that I've done and some of the new projects coming on. It's got a bunch of clips and so forth. And then a Love Not Lost and a couple of my other films, because they're still in festivals, I won't post those out yet. And then you can find me on John D. Anthony Actor on Facebook. Instagram is JDA Film 34. And then of course you can just John Anthony on my IMDb page.
Yes.
Awesome. Request from all of us right after this. Don't worry. But John, thank you so much for joining us today. Rob, anything else?
No, I just want to say I really enjoyed getting to know you, and I wish you the best of luck with these upcoming projects. They sound really interesting and exciting, and I really wish you the best of success in all of these things. So,
thank you guys so much.
Wonderful.
I had a great time. Really, really
John.
enjoyed it.
Have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Man, what a just nice guy. Just a really cool guy. We've had a lot of different actors and screenwriters and people on the show that are in Hollywood, and he just seems really down to earth and just seems like, hey, I thought I'd give this a try.
And he provides hope for those of us in teaching that there is life beyond teaching.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you and I are both in jobs where
Right.
one of the biggest appeals of the job is the idea of retirement.
Yeah.
We all joke about, I only got this many years
so many
left.
years.
I know you're in a 30-year system. I'm in a 20-year
Yeah.
system, and it's nice that it sounds like he's starting his life again after this close to retirement, and it's just awesome.
And I have to say that is one of the great perks of being a teacher too, is that, like he said, you get summers off and you get all this time off, and that allows you to pursue a lot of your passions that you really wanted to. I know, when during the summer I get to write a lot more. I get to enjoy a lot of the things that I enjoy.
Well, we even podcast a lot more.
Yeah, I think we do.
During those times off, there's some weeks where we're doing 2-3 episodes, but it's inspiring not only to hear that he has such a passionate project or passionate projects that he's working on, but also that he is finding success and he wasn't dissuaded by it's scary starting something new.
Oh yeah.
Especially, he started when he was 50. People would be like, why are you starting something new at the age of 50? That's crazy to think about. But
and being with the Academy Awards coming up, I was thinking about him because there is a category called Best Short Live Action Film.
Right.
And I watched most of them, and I have to say, I would love it to see, they were okay. Some of them were better than others, but I would love it to see him.
Cheer.
Yeah, I would love to see his come up next year and see, for live action short film, one of his being nominated.
He's going to have to come back on the show.
That would be
he promised.
fantastic.
You guys all heard it. But that was a lot of fun, and we want to thank John for taking some time out of his day to chat with us. So that's pretty much going to wrap us up. Don't forget, guys, if you want more of our content, you can go to themisfitfaction.com. There you'll find links to all of our different articles, our different shows, not only MF Uncensored, but also Multiverse Fancast, Cinematic Adventures, and yeah, you can find some links to some of our affiliates, some of our friends. And don't forget, guys, you can also find us on social media, The Misfit Faction. Basically, just type that into any social media, and there's a chance you'll find us. But that's going to wrap us up for today. As always, I'm Paul.
And I'm Rob.
And we'll be back next time.